dey Lagos Oyinbo. If I carry you go banana, my guy, you go love Lagos. If I carry you go to Elegushi, you go love Lagos. If I carry you go Niru, my guy, you go love Lagos. Sepe see the police, Governor Ambode Kofoshi, helicopter low for Loki. You cannot deny, you know see. Father Kérésì làwọn tèmi ṣá, ọmọ Kérésì wọlé bá. Kó dùn kó pọ̀ kó pẹ́ làwọn tèmi ṣá, ìtẹ̀síwájú Èkó làwọn tèmi wá. E never finish, ọlọ́pàá don get new motor. E never finish, èyí tẹ̀lé yẹ ó ti pọ̀ tó. Òyìnbó, Èkó ló wá òyìnbó. Òyìnbó, why you speaking Òyìnbó? Òyìnbó, you dey Lagos Òyìnbó. If I carry you go Ìkẹjà, my guy, you go love Lagos, yo. If I carry you go Badagry, my guy, you go love Lagos, yo. If I carry you go to Lagos Island, you go love Lagos, yo. Ele jamo, ele tiko, ele bàjẹ́ náà. Central of excellence lẹ́wà in case you don't know. Mijaye, Nimale, Mijaye, Nibele, Mijaye, káàkiri ló bá sún mi malole. Riding through my city, and now hustling my city, and now made it in my city, and now God bless my city, and now Oyinbo, Èkó ló wá Oyinbo, Oyinbo, why you speaking Oyinbo? Oyinbo, you dey Lagos Oyinbo. If I carry you go Korodu, my guy, you go love Lagos.
Economic recovery. These days, people use economic situation as an excuse. Some people will say, you know what the economy is saying now. What is it saying? They say we are getting out of it. Mr. Lion, please come up.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, the governors of Lagos State and Kano State, the deputy governors of Lagos State and Kano State, distinguished senators here present, distinguished commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to speak to this distinguished forum on the economic recovery and growth plan, representing the Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Udoma. I apologize that for some reason the transmission of my presentation is not yet on the screen, so I would just proceed and hope that we all can follow, and hopefully the presentation can be shared after this. For most of us who are definitely familiar with the economy, we know that since 2015, the economy has been challenged. So this administration actually started with a very challenged economy. At that point in time, 2014 and start of 2015, the prices of crude oil and commodities generally had declined, and the revenues of the federal government had dwindled by as much as 50 to 60%. And that obviously created a fiscal crisis for the country. The collapse of oil prices...
Your Excellencies, I need to take a short break with him. There's a slight mix-up. I was to announce the presentation to be made by Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, who is SSA, to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment. But I got a paper saying he's the representative. Now, I heard that she is here. It's only natural for me to kindly ask him to take a bow while she steps up to do her job. Let's put our hands together for him for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So shall we have Mrs. Oduwole, please? Thank you.
Good morning. Your Excellencies, the governors of Lagos and Kano State, Your Excellencies, the deputy governors. I'm here with my colleague. We work together. And in fact, what I'm going to speak on is a portion of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. So with Your Excellency's permission, I'll let Mr. Folari introduce ARGP, and then I will take us a bit further, and we'll stay within our allotted 10 minutes, with your permission.
Thank you for the interlude. So we're talking about the collapse in the oil prices, the challenges in the economy, and the fact that there was a fiscal deficit in the economy. Obviously, this created a lot of difficulties and cash crunch for many of the states. As we all know, there was challenge with paying salaries, and there was a downward economic spiral generally in terms of foreign exchange, in terms of real GDP, and most states had a fundamental challenge. Therefore, the government decided to take some very bold steps. In 2016, the Strategic Implementation Plan was launched, and then in April 2017, the government launched the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. That is a medium-term plan developed through extensive consultation with the primary objective of lifting the economy out of recession. It was important that government had a very definite plan to lift the economy out of recession and to put the economy back on a path of sustained growth. Since then, obviously, we know what the results have been. Real GDP growth turned positive since Q2 2017. The recent results by the National Bureau of Statistics indicate that the economy increased further and GDP increased further Q4 2017. Capital importation has been an upward trend, and we all can see the dramatic improvement, albeit still very gradual, in terms of foreign exchange, in terms of improvement in inflation, and general improvement in the economy, including the narrowing exchange rate. We're also much aware of the improvement in terms of the ease of doing business index that Mrs. Oduwole would very, very competently spend some time to talk about. And all these are some of the improvements in the economy that have been occasioned by the implementation of the government's new economic plan. However, there's still a lot of work to do, and that is why we're here to update participants on what's economic in solid minerals, mines, and steel development. So if there are investors here who are interested, we're willing to speak with them and have them discuss with us on how they can participate in these labs and drive investments. Thank you. So I will give my colleague the opportunity to speak on the ease of doing business index, and some more specifics. Thank you for your attention, Your Excellencies.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity for having us here. Immediately, we'll go straight on to talking about, you just heard a bit about the ERGP. I'm going to spend about 7 minutes talking about one pillar, which is the pillar on competitiveness. We all know that it's pretty important to have, next slide please. We all know that it's pretty important to have a thriving business environment that is conducive for investment. Using the World Bank as a baseline, the countries that are on top of the pile have at least a 2.5 GDP growth rate ahead of the countries that are below. Nigeria is currently 145. Next slide, please. We want to be a globally, of course, we want to be a leading African economy in the true sense, in technology, in all the ways, in infrastructure, not just the largest GDP, but the truly leading African economy. We believe this is important, and that's why it's a pillar in the ERGP. And we want to be top 100 by 2020. Next slide, please. This is the current trajectory. After about a decade of slipping downwards steadily, this administration managed to steady the path, and this applies to the entire economy, and we're moving up. And so this is where we want to be by 2020, under 100. Now, how did we do this? Mr. President inaugurated the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council in July of 2016, and it's chaired by His Excellency, who actually started speaking about this yesterday, the Vice President. Our mandate is to remove the bottlenecks and to make sure that Nigeria is a top 100 economy in the next 2 years. Next slide, please. The PEBEC reports on a quarterly basis to the Federal Executive Council so that everybody in the cabinet knows exactly what is happening. It's run by a secretariat, a small secretariat of about 20 people, which I have the privilege of coordinating. I'm secretary to the council because I'm on the Vice President's economic team. We have the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment as the Vice Chair. I'm also representing him here today, and about 10 other ministers of cabinet and members of Lagos and Kano State, very high level representation at the council. Next slide, please. Now, Nigeria is one of the 11 countries, only 11 countries out of 190 in the world that are ranked with 2 cities. Because we have a population of over 100 million as at 2013, Nigeria is ranked with Lagos, by Lagos and Kano economies, the private sector filling questionnaires. The Excellencies are well aware of this project and have attended the extended Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council meetings. They have representatives that come monthly. Lagos State is represented by Mr. Toba Otusoya, and Kano State is represented by the Honorable Commissioner Rabiu. These are the agencies that have been working with us for the last 2 years, and together we've been able to deliver these results for Nigeria. I think it's really important to note that every questionnaire is filled by a business person in Lagos or Kano State. So the results, there's no other place. That's why we could not miss this Lagos-Kano summit for any reason. The Excellencies know how I'm always writing letters and coming over, and I must take this opportunity to thank both of them. They've hosted us several times, stakeholder engagements, and many of our colleagues, we're now colleagues, we don't even know state or federal lines. All the agencies you see there are people here in this room. I already saw Mrs. Dapo Thomas, Mrs. Onabule, different people. I saw Mr. Otusoya yesterday, and the Kano delegation, Kangis, Kanupda, everybody's in the room. We work together as one team, and we were National Assembly to pass 2 legislations. I'm so glad that one of the senators is in the room with us. Senator, you'll recall that last year, there were 2 bills that we were harassing the National Assembly over. We had an extended PEBEC meeting and invited the Excellency, the Senate President, and the Right Honorable Speaker. They both attended in person. And they committed to His Excellency, the Vice President, that they will pass the bill. And nobody thought it could be done in 90 days. They said, just let us finish with the budget. We will pass them. And they did pass them, and we met the deadline. And we're number 6 in the world in getting credit. Our enabling environment is ranked number 6 in the world, and that was collaboration with the National Assembly. We also had a reform in paying taxes. Now, this slide is some of what we were able to achieve, but I won't want to go into too much detail. Also, the next slide talks about some of the impact, what we were able to save, but I'll skip those. The next slide, I should just mention that with the success that we recorded with Lagos and Kano State, we expanded the project to all the states of the Federation and the Abuja Federal Capital Territory. So since July last year, we've been working with all the states. I presented at the National Economic Council with the Honorable Minister, and the Excellencies felt, yes, it was a laudable project, and we already had case study of how we had succeeded with 2 other states. So right now, this model has been replicated across state lines, and we're currently having a roadshow. We've been to Kaduna, we've been to Ogun, we're going to Gombe, Borno, Abia next week, and just on and on like that. So that's the power of collaboration. It's now going statewide. The next slide just tells us what we're doing right now. It's what we did last February to April that delivered the 24 Places movement in World Bank. This year, we started on February 5th, and we're ending on April 5th. This is what we're doing at the federal level. And very quickly, I'll tell you what Lagos and Kano are doing. I won't go into the detail. We're going to give out the publications because I know that my time is gone. But these are some of the areas we're working again with construction permits. And the Excellencies have received my letters and have had meetings just asking for that political will. Our colleagues have been extremely cooperative. They are the ones that really point out where the savings can be made, both in Lagos and Kano, where in Lagos and Kano every 2 weeks. And just moving on from construction permits, registering property also. We have a number of asks that we've been working on to improve, reduce the number of time, to reduce fees, and working on transparency. So I think we'll send out the presentation so that we can get, I'll go to the impact slide, the last slide, please. This is the impact that we hope to receive when we reduce cost and time and we improve transparency. Really, our businesses are very happy. And the very last slide really is one of our favorite slides. It's the success story of Nigeria, what we want to see. The best way to create the future, instead of predicting it, the best way is to really create it. And this is the future that we want to see, a textbook African success story. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening to us and for the privilege of presenting to you today. Very, very proud of Lagos and Kano State. You're my shining stars in ease of doing business. Thank you very much.
Hello. Well, can you put your hands together one more time for them? And the kind of presentation I'd like and crave for today is one that is as time conscious as hers. I was so thrilled when she said, I know my time is up. Let me quickly get off the stage. Thank you very much. Now, we have a time to beat. There is a very important ceremony that must hold before we end. That is the signing of the MOU by the 2 host governors. And the time to do that is 1 o'clock. And we must have finished everything. Therefore, those I'm going to call up now, as conscious as they are of the subject matter, which is security, they also know that security works with time. No, so? So we're going to discuss security right away. The issue of security, the topic is the role of states in managing security challenges in mega cities. The moderator for the session is Alhaji Bashir A. Albasu, a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police. Let's put our hands together for him as it comes up. Is the Katukan Kano. Please come up, sir. To be our lead discussant, we have Alhaji Hashimu Salihu Argungu, MNI. He's also retired Deputy Inspector General of Police. Let's put our hands together for him. It's a session of the Inspectors Generals that retired. Because the man I'm going to call next is Mr. Tunji Alakbini, MNI, retired Assistant Inspector General of Police. He's a discussant. The next person will be the chairman of the Security Trust Fund, Lagos, but he is under the weather. He is going to be ably represented by the Executive Secretary of the Lagos Security Trust Fund, Dr. Abdulrazak Balogun. Let's put our hands together for all of these gentlemen as they take their position. Yes, you can sit. I think I need to adjust the seating for ease of recognition. Sir, you're supposed to be here, sir. I'd like you to be here, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Alhaji, sir, you come next, and then you, and then the Executive Secretary over there. Thank you, sir. Yes. Yeah, last seat for you. Thank you. I'll turn this here. I'd like to, gentlemen, we have just 30 minutes for you. 30 minutes, and I'm going to keep the time. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, the host governor, our host, Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kano State, Dr. Umar Abdullahi Ganduje, guests here present, ladies and gentlemen. Myself and my colleagues feel highly honored to have been invited to talk on this very important subject, the subject of security. As you all know, or many of you know, security is a bedrock of development in every society.
Hello?
And therefore, for us to be given, therefore, for us to be given this topic to talk on is a great honor. The topic we are discussing on today is the issue of state participation in metropolitan security. And with me to discuss this important subject are two seasoned, well-educated police officers. I have a retired Deputy Inspector General of Police, Alhaji Hashimu Salihu Argungu. Alhaji Hashimu Salihu Argungu retired as a Deputy Inspector General of Police after a meritorious service of over 30 years. He has served in most parts of Nigeria, and he is a lawyer by profession and a holder of master's degree in law in addition. Along with him is another well-known face, especially to people in Lagos, Mr. Tinji Alapini. Mr. Tinji Alapini retired as Assistant Inspector General of Police after serving the country meritoriously for 35 years. He was Commissioner of Police in several states, including Benue and Zamfara. He was the first public relations officer of the Nigeria Police, a job he did very, very well. And he is a member of the International Police Association, one of the most prestigious associations you can get in the world. In view of time, and with this brief introduction, I will call upon Alhaji Salisu Arugungum to kick the ball rolling.
Deputy Governors, Lagos and Kano State, then I stand on the existing protocol. Yes. As the topic mentioned, the roles of state in managing security challenges in mega cities. The two cities I gave an example, Lagos and Kano. But to start with, let me just quote one advanced human psychologist so that in the case of presentation, you may see what I'm trying to see in terms of differences. Where he said, diversity and disparities are realities. When we think, behave, and act alike, then we are no more human beings, we are robots. In policing and in security, we always look at things in the eyes of security. And yesterday, most all the speakers, from the beginning to an end, in the course of their presentations, the first ones, good governance and inclusive governance, where he mentioned human security. Then the one I also had here pertaining to power, when he says security, he said not physical security, but commercial security. The same thing, the other one, we went there for tourism. He mentioned security, but tourism security. So you see, the reason why I don't want to go into definition, the word security is contentious, relative, and ambiguous. So instead of that, I decided among all the categories of security to see which one is relevant to city. Then I decided among all the categories, I look environmental security, TAL is mentioned there, scenario, environmental security. Then this, John Alderson, in his book, Policing Freedom, he was a retired police officer in London, and also after retirement, he was an associate professor. In his book, this is what he mentioned, explain of the environmental security. Under it, he put all what often physical security, social, economic, cultural, political, and security all fall under this environmental security. Next slide. Then, last week, the president of this country, he lamented on an incident that occurred in Yobe. He said it was a national disaster. So based on that now, I want to connect environmental security with disaster, and also borrow the word. The president said national disaster, and see how some disasters will fall into cities. And this is what Dele, in his book on protective security, that's the title of the book. And he gave types of this disaster: natural and human disasters. So from there, next, then we come and see the species of elements, animals, species of plants, species of this. Then we have to put a microscope under to see what are the species of these disasters now. Natural cause and human cause. Under there, we have the sudden occurrence, that's monocause, and followed by progressive occurrence, multi-caused. Storm, nobody can control it. It's a natural disaster caused by nature. Storm. Under heat wave, serious what? Weather, you can't control it. Then followed by the human one, this is at a sudden occurrence where mostly all these things happen on negligence conduct in the course of doing our respective jobs. Most of these human something. Fire accident, explosive, vehicle accident and crash, plane crash, structural collapse, which is very common in Lagos here. Building collapse here, this and this there. There must be something wrong. The professional ethics of engineers. In those days when we were young, the engineer, when he meets building something is effective, he will order for destroy it from the beginning because to avoid future accident or whatever it is. So the environmental solutions, followed by the other one, the issue of terrorism and insurgency. What happened in Yobe fall under the other progressive occurrence on either terrorism or insurgency, followed by what? Economic crisis, what the first speaker said pertaining the economy. Yes, so let's also look into pollution too. Let's see the full English dictionary define air pollution, water pollution, industrial, noise and sound, followed by thermal pollution. These are sort of the things. Now let's go into another slide. Now these are the major things in cities, the challenges. These are the challenges and we'll see how we counter it. One, communicable diseases. Wherever there is ground people, anything, disease can easily emerge. Followed by unsound, unsafe built environment, which is very common in the root areas of these cities, buildings done without following the regulation or what have you. The lack of infrastructure and amenities is also one of the challenges. Urban violence and crime, where we see even here, criminals going to school, abducting children, going to palaces, abducting chiefs and what have you, upon all these days. Vulnerability of what? Eco-disaster and natural hazard, result of building of inappropriate places and what? Environmental degradation is very common, I've said it already. Then coming to ethnic conflicts, where people of different cultural background converge under different social. It's very common, fighting from here and here. Just what happened in Kaduna last week, or this week, simply because one girl and a boy, they are friends, others feel bad, and they come and about 12 people and other buildings being destroyed. Yes, lack of financial resources is another area of challenges, unhealthy and unsanitary environment with poor air quality and inadequate amenities. The other one there is very common in the very remote places of the cities. Injury and deaths from road traffic accident caused by congestion and lack of regulations. What most important is not business in the mega cities. The most important thing, the environment and the people. Without people and environment, business and whatever is useless. All this in the cost of planning, they have to consider always people and very clean environment, then that will boost the business. Next. Yeah. These are sort of the things in the city we get the good side of it here. You see all of them here, see it yourself. Next. Yes. Yesterday, the first paper presented, expected those who presented to put the issue of ICT, which is the most important thing today. No matter your rank, no matter your profession, whatever you are, you don't have ICT, believe me, you are incomplete. So I expected in the course of this government reformation, they should talk on e-reform, where everything, just this morning, all along we have been communicating on ICT, informing us to come, sending our lectures and everything through all this. Even yesterday when we were coming, the driver was not, he don't even know what to come. But only he used his own GPS and get direction, and we're here. There are so many things on that. So what I'm just trying to say here, I took your time? Oh, please, let's go to what the state south to do. Let me just something. Yes, next slide. Okay, next slide. The main thing. Okay. Okay, let's go to where. Okay, let's go to, yes, this is the role. Here, deploying new security technologies is one of the issues this government they should look into. Because today, cybercrime is the most dangerous crime in Nigeria and all over the world. It's a crime which can easily be committed simply and hardly to be detected. The jurisdictions cover the whole world. The exhibit, very perishable, you can just see it and what have you. So there's a need security agency to have this something. Next. Yes, local solutions. Just like what I mentioned here, Kano and Lagos, they are mega cities, but there is some peculiarity in within the two of the state. They have to consider their own local problems and solve their own problems too. Next, public-private partnership. Yesterday when I came here, I met many of these private securities and what have you, and many were involved in this. Something is very, very vital too for these issues. Yes, inclusive governance. You have to, what is a good governance, include almost each and everybody to be part of it and be self-belonging. Next, adequate skill of today. Somebody will just go behind here, within 5 minutes, remove money from one bank, not only in this country, to different continents and share it. So in the case of investigation, no matter your rank, it's not rank now, security is issue of knowledge base, not labor base. And even see why people are talking of recruitment. No, very what two people can do, more than 1,000 health people is going to take it 47. So this is very, very vital what I'm trying to point out here. The skill to investigate, even if you are the son, to prosecute the case, you don't have ICT knowledge, you have to bring someone forensic to assist you. You are the chief judge of this world. You don't have ICT knowledge, you are minus, because you have to get somebody to interpret certain things to you. And almost everything. Next, what here I'm saying, I mean, it just goes where I'm saying. Training of judges, lawyers, police, and others is very vital. Then here are auxiliaries, which is very common. The issue of landscaping, which is limited access something, street and exterior lighting, security alarms in public and places. Had it been where those, here even in Lagos or Yobe, those insurgency moved those gears, there was alarm somewhere, click it, rank to the security agency, who click come and meet them and solve the but something. Then public parking, okay, this one is also very important. Surveillance cameras and scanning, where we have now, they have to buy vehicles. Even going through the houses, the scanning can detect where something wrong over there. Or even somebody patterned all around there. Then, yes, next. Yes, okay, these are some of my references. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hashim Argungu. Without making any comments, I will call on Mr. Tunji Alapini to come and make his presentation. Mr. Tunji, please.
Thank you very much. I will just go straight into the practical aspect of policing and the responsibilities and rules of states in ensuring there is, that they have an actual role in trying to sustain the peace expected in carrying out enabling economy. Lagos and Kano are two big states in Nigeria. Lagos has 20 local governments and 37 LCDAs. Kano has 40 local government areas. Federal government has responsibility of providing the wherewithal in terms of security for those states. But we call the governors of those states chief security officers without any form of security. But because they know that they have responsibility to their citizens, they've ensured that whether they have a role or they don't have a role, they have, over the years, been offering support to all security agencies within their states. And this has enhanced economic development in those states. Most of those states, mostly in Lagos here, set up other agencies that complement security agencies in terms of traffic, and of recent, what you have, I think, the Neighborhood Watch, which is an addition to trying to enhance that, what we talk about, community policing. And if you're having this, it costs money. They are pumping so much money into some of these roles that is hitherto not their responsibilities. But I have to credit Lagos and Kano for ensuring. I was in Kano, although most of their responsibilities in terms of security provision is concentrated in the metropolis. But Lagos, that is in the metropolis of Kano, that's having maybe about 7 local governments. All the other areas are rural areas. But Lagos is a role model in terms of policing, providing security for the nation. Lagos set up what is called the Rapid Response Squad. And that Rapid Response Squad I have served all over Nigeria. It is only in Lagos that I have seen that in all the local governments, from Badagry, Ikorodu, Epe, up to any Alimosho, there is nowhere you can drive for 5 minutes without finding a particular RRS vehicle. And if you have to talk about the response rate, I've been telling people that the response rate is the most important thing in terms of security, prevention, and application. When I was coming to Epe 2 days ago, I got a call that my landlord is from a person, my landlord has locked the gate, is trying to attack me. I said, where is your place? About to be killed. I said, okay, give me your number. Can I call you on this number? I said, yes. I called the commander RRS, and I said, call this number and ask what the problem is and find out what should be done. Between Aja Junction and the end of ShopRite, the lady called back and said, sir, I said, look, I've telephoned RRS. I said, yes, there are some police vehicles, not vehicles out there. Then I said, Ambody, you are doing well. The response rate is fast. So, but when you have to look at all these things, it is not only in terms of providing all these amenities that are very important. We're talking about, people compare United States of America, Britain, in terms of policing. Yes, the crime rate in those areas is very high. But the only thing we give credit to them is commit an offense, either in the US or anywhere. Just like their president will say, we will smoke you out. no matter what, they will go, no matter how you hide, they will smoke them out. And I think what we require in terms of practical policing for those mega cities that we're now having now, especially Lagos and Kano, is for them to develop the strategies they are having to ensure that once a crime is, you cannot stop crime. We can prevent, you can put apparatus on ground to prevent crime, but you cannot stop crime. But once crime is committed, you must be able to go ahead and solve that crime. So far, I've seen Lagos 3 weeks ago. They said at Ikorodu, I think they set up mobile CCTV. And some people were picking pockets. As they were picking pockets, their mobile CCTV was picking what was happening. They walked quietly to these people, somebody who thought probably I have stolen and I'm on my way out. And by the time he got to where he was about to keep the money, I think some of the harassment grabbed him. It does not end there. The beautiful thing was it was investigated, notwithstanding that he was caught red-handed, it was investigated, charged to court, and sentenced. I think it's a success rate. So what we're looking at in terms of policing megacity is for us to put all apparatus in place to ensure that tourism, investments, the citizens can sleep and say, yes, I'm an environment in which no matter what, my peace is secured. This is where I think along the line, we have to continue to talk about policing megacity with the introduction of technology, which I think, I encourage technology, and I think Governor of Lagos State and Kano, they are compliant in terms of technology. There's when I went to Kano the last time, there's one big building, tall building. I think, I can't remember what they call it. Is it technology building or something? So I'm sure I know they are doing something there. And the last time I tried to find out, I was writing a paper, I went to Lagos State, Alausa, and what I found there in terms of their CCTV application, how they were policing the mega city and trying to ensure that, how many minutes? 2 minutes. You say 2 hours? No. I will encourage that that place be really strengthened the way it should be. And if Lagos is spending so much money on security, and Kano also is spending so much money on security, for an organization that has responsibility for that, don't we think it's time for them to package themselves together and try and say, yes, if I can pay the piper, I will sing the tune. People are talking about trying to say either federal police, state police, or whatever police. I think it's time for us to look inwards and say, yes, in policing megacity, we have to give all the responsibilities to the chief executives of those areas so that they don't have to look left or right before they can move forward in ensuring that their cities are safe. I think it's high time we look at my distinguished senators sitting down here, that probably with all state assemblies, maybe if they put 1 or 2 things together and see how we can encourage state police so that at the end of the day, the way, if you want to take care of your place, you don't have to go and run to somebody in Abuja to say, this is what I need to be able to take care of my place. I think I commend Lagos and Kano the way they are at the moment. But meanwhile, Lagos, you're a role model for other states to learn from, but you still have a lot to do in terms of policing the state. I wish you well.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tini. The next person I will call is the Executive Secretary, Lagos State Security Trust Fund. I am particularly happy that this gentleman has been invited because some 2 years ago, when we came here as a police reform team, we visited the headquarters of the Rapid Response Squad of the Lagos State and saw the efforts the Trust Fund has done. And since then, I have been advocating this Trust Fund for Kano State. I'm glad today that the governor of Kano State is here, the deputy governor is here, and all the stakeholders who can move the matter are here, and we will listen to the person in the center of the Trust Fund. Executive Secretary, you are welcome.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to send the apologies of Mr. Oyodukale, who is not feeling well at the moment, so I'm standing in for him. Well, I want to, first of all, thank our speakers for what they have delivered this morning. From my perspective, or the perspective of the Trust Fund, we will be speaking in terms of the funding aspect of all these beautiful things that we speak about to keep our cities safe. First of all, a mega city, as we all know, is any city that has a population of over 10 million. So it's not a question of how developed or how well it is. Any city above 10 million is a mega city, and I know Kano and Lagos share that peculiarity. Also, in terms of security, as most of us know, we must also talk about the peculiarities of these two different states. I'm quite familiar with Kano. I haven't lived in the north for a very long time. And I know the peculiarities are quite different from Lagos. Lagos is a littoral state. We have the land borders, we have the airports, and we are surrounded by water. So the peculiarities of our state is quite different. Also, you know that because of the economic prosperity of Lagos, it attracts so many people for different reasons: education, healthcare, good standard of living, nightlife, and all that. And I'm sure same goes for Kano in different ways. So what we have been doing in Lagos is to create an environment, because our able governor realizes that if you do not have a very conducive and secure atmosphere, businesses cannot thrive in any city. And when lives and properties are not protected, it means businesses can't thrive and you cannot get the revenue that you need to develop infrastructure in the state. And so, since he assumed office as governor, he has ensured that security is one of the stands, the tripod that his administration is hinged upon. And he has taken that very seriously. And I must say, for any state, particularly these two states we are talking about, to be very successful in terms of their security architecture, the chief executives must have that will, and I think our governor demonstrates that. And one of the ways he demonstrates that is, in so many other ways, is that there's a monthly Security Council meeting that he holds with the service chiefs on a monthly basis. He never delegates that responsibility. And when they discuss, I mean, they tell him about their needs and he meets all their needs as they come. Funding is security is a very expensive venture and is a recurring expenditure. So when people say, oh, they just give them vehicles, they give them stuff like that, and within 1 year it's all gone. And I tell them that if you want the police to perform their duty optimally, you don't expect them to park the car as fancy and just not do their role. So in the course of performing their role, they may crash a brand new car within a week. It's part of their responsibilities. So in Lagos, what we have done in the last 10 years is to create a security trust fund, which was passed by legislation of the Lagos State House of Assembly. Last year was 10 years that this fund was created. And the fund was created in a public-private partnership model so that the private sector can, contribute their quota, because as we know, no matter the businesses you do in Lagos or no matter what we do in Lagos, we say that security is a common denomination of all aspects of our lives and is in our common interest. So the fund came together in a public-private partnership structure, and it has a board of trustees made up of mostly private sector chief executives and also people from government. And the whole idea is to reach out to organizations to support the trust fund, to contribute their quota, contribute their resources. It's not necessarily about cash alone. It can be in any way or manner that can aid the services of our security agencies. And what is very instructive about this trust fund, that is a very lean trust fund. I know that so many states that have come to copy us in Lagos, I mean, they come in with about 50, 60 staff strength in the trust fund. At the Lagos State Trust Fund, we're just about 7 or 8 people administering that fund. And it's very deliberate to keep the expenditure very lean. And over the years, the corporate sector has been donating, on a regular basis, even though you have to continue to reach out to them. It's voluntary, it's not compulsory. But I must say that the success of the trust fund vis-a-vis the success of our security architecture in Lagos State is that we are a very highly accountable organization. And one of the things that drives the efficiency of police and other security agencies is those intangibles that people don't speak to. So you buy a vehicle for a police officer, you don't fuel it, you don't buy spare tires, you don't service them. These are things that make them grounded and don't make them very efficient. These are the things we do in Lagos State to continue to keep the city very, very safe. The Lagos State government, I must say, is the highest contributor to the trust fund, but in kind. In the last 10 years, Lagos State has donated over 70% of the total earnings of the Security Trust Fund. And so it shows the seriousness of government in ensuring that the city is very safe. And I think all of us can see in the last few days that you've been in Lagos, I'm sure every time you come back to this city, you see something different. As a matter of fact, a lot of things that before now, for instance, the nightlife in Lagos before now was almost non-existent. Now as we speak, everywhere is well lit. People go around their businesses are back. So I just want to say that what is most important, as I said earlier, is the will of the chief executive, and I think I must give it to our governor, that one of the greatest assets that we have at the trust fund is that our governor barely interferes in what we do at the trust fund. What we do is report back, send reports to him, send audits to him, and he leaves the fund to function on its own. And I think that is very, very important in any successful government agency. So I just must say that we, again, because of the seriousness of security in the state, the governor again is convening a security summit in March next month again, later this month on the 26th, so that we can have a total holistic view of how we want to secure our state in the immediate term, mid-term, and long term. We're looking for a 20-year roadmap for a secure Lagos. I want to thank you, Your Excellencies, and I believe that anytime we're called upon to share our experiences, we are always willing to render that to Kano State. Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, Executive Governor of Lagos State, Executive Governor Kano State, the Deputy Governors Lagos and Kano, gentlemen, you have heard it all from the knowledgeable people on this side. Because of time factor, I cannot go over the speech of every person and summarize. But the main theme, the main important thing to note is what is the role of the state in metropolitan security. If you look at it, it has been said by the three of them. One, funding. You have to get an authority that will fund security agencies properly. There's no way you can get efficient security without funding. Security is an expensive material and must put money to be paid for if you want to achieve a good security. If you have the funds, then you have to have the relevant equipments that can be used properly for providing security. These equipments include the technology, the mobility, the arms and ammunition, the training of the security men, and the welfare of the security men. These are very necessary. In this direction, it is almost impossible, especially in a third world, for the government alone to carry the responsibility of security. The funding of security has to be joint. And in this respect, we commend the Lagos State government, being the pioneer state to introduce the Police Trust Fund. I was a witness to what this has been done. By the time we came to see what was happening, we found that in the corpus of that trust fund, there was over 10 billion naira, except apart from the expenditure that has been done. At that time, the fund has purchased more than 1,000 vehicles for the police in Lagos. The fund is paying not salary, but sufficient allowances to outweigh the salary. And the fund is maintaining the vehicles, the houses, and other equipments of the police. The fund has put ICT technology all over Lagos, that anything you do will be recorded on the camera. So really, as I said, this is one of the easiest way you can improve security. And I think all mega cities in Nigeria, not only Kano and Lagos, places like Kaduna, like Port Harcourt, like Onitsha, should all copy this idea, because mega cities must be properly policed if they are to grow. And to be policed properly must be properly funded. The Police Trust Fund has two areas of success, as mentioned by the Executive Secretary. One, there must be accountability. And we are very pleased to note that when we came, the management of the fund is not done by Lagos State government, even though it is providing over 60% of the fund. I think the chairman is a private individual. I can't remember who he was, but I think he's either a banker or an industrialist as the chairman of the fund. I think the secretary, the executive secretary is provided by Lagos State, but other members is a mixture of Lagos State and the private individuals. This has shown the intention, the willingness of Lagos State to render accountability of whatever money is collected. And every year, there is a general meeting. I don't know what they call it, but it's a general meeting in which nearly all or most of the contributors attend, and they are given an account of what has been done with that money. So they are encouraged to contribute because they have the belief that their money will be used in the right direction. This is one area that is very important in getting a successful trust fund. Secondly, the efficiency of the service. If you have the funding properly, under it you have the equipment, you have the training, you have the welfare, then you are likely 100% to get to very good 90% or over efficiency service. For example, Mr. Olafini mentioned the case of response. Anywhere in the world, there is a standard rate of response. And if you meet that standard, the moment you telephone, within a period of 5 minutes, police officers are around, police officers are there, and that response gives a lot of confidence to the people. And these people are the people that are paying for the services. So once you have that response, certainly people will contribute voluntarily. So Lagos, the Executive Governor of Lagos will congratulate you for this very big effort. And we hope by next year, when this summit is taking place in Kano, we will also congratulate the Executive Governor of Kano over this issue. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for this panel. They've done a very great job, and we struggle to keep time. I want to thank you very much, the moderator and the discussants. You may please return to your seats. Thank you very much. As they go back to their seat, we'll show a video while we get ready for the next 3 sessions, which we're going to take simultaneously. This video will talk a little bit about security and its challenges. Thank you. I think we can step down that till you're ready for it. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 more. Please stop it. Please stop it. We have 3 more sessions to take. And these 3 sessions will take place simultaneously. One is going to take place right here. I need 3 more seats added here. That's 4, 5. I need 3 more seats added to the stage here, please. The one that will take place here is the ease of doing business, and the topic is the responsibilities of states in improving the ease of doing business ranking in Nigeria. The moderator is Mr. Uyi Akpata, Country Senior Partner, PwC Nigeria. Let's put our hands together for him. I saw him a short while ago. Next, I want to introduce you to the lead discussant, who is a professor of economics from Hobart and W.M. Smith College, Rochester, New York. Put your hands together for Professor Alan Frischman. Professor Frischman, please come up. And then the discussants are Alhaji Ahmad Rabiu, Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Commerce, Industry, Cooperatives and Tourism, Kano State. Let's put our hands together for him as he comes. And earlier we met Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment. Let's clap for her too as she's coming. I also have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Mudashiru Yusuf, Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. That's LCCI. Another round of applause for him as he comes. Please don't get tired of clapping. We have a few more claps to go. It's my pleasure also to introduce Mrs. Bola Adesola, or Adeshola, I'm not sure now. I should have asked her, but I didn't see. Oh, yes, there she is. Yes. The Managing Director, CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, Nigeria. A round of applause for her. At least there are going to be 2 women on this panel. Thank you. And finally, I have Professor Abdulsalam Nasidi, OON, Vice Chairman, Rich Care Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for them as they constitute the panel for here. Now, the panel for Agric and other value chains will hold their session to my left here. I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Francis Osuya, CEO, Frost Capital. He's the lead, he's the moderator. A round of applause for him. Like we did yesterday, we are splitting up. You can go to this way, that way, and some of you will remain here. Your Excellencies, I have the pleasure again of of splitting you as we did. The governor of Kano was here yesterday. He should go there today. And the governor of Lagos should go this way today. And of course, the senator is the one I feel bad for. We're going to have to split you. Please go with Lagos State. Yes, sir. Your Excellency, I cannot choose, sir. I'm suggesting. You know, in the service, you cannot direct. That's why I didn't use that word direct, sir. But I would like to suggest that you choose where you want to stay. Thank you very much. Now, I was saying that the Agric and the other value chains will go there. Mr. Francis Osuya is the moderator. Professor Murtala Sabo Sagagi is Dean, Dangote Business School, Bayero University, Kano. He is the lead discussant. Other discussants are Mr. Richard Sandal, Senior Private Sector Advisor, DFID, Dr. Sani Hussein Sagagi, Deputy Country Director, Sasakawa Africa Association, Nigeria, Mr. Rahul Savara, Group Managing Director, Tropical General Investments Group, and Mr. Olugbenga Awe, Group Head, Agric Finance, Heritage Bank PLC. That's Agric to the left. Join as you please. The other session will be Education, ICT, and Skills Development. Topic will be Knowledge Economy, the role of education, ICT, and skills development. Dr. Bashir Shehu Galadanchi of Bayero University, Kano, is the moderator, to the right in that hall there. The lead discussant, Dr. Kabir Kabo Usman, former DG, Center for Management Development, that's CMD. Other discussants include Mr. Asadigi Asadugu, Corporate Council on Africa, Mr. John Obaro, MDCO, System Specs, and Mrs. Omolara Erogogo, Executive Secretary, Lagos State Technical and Vocational Education Board, last verb. That will take place over there. Ladies and gentlemen, you're a wonderful audience. Kindly shift to any of the halls that please you, but we need to have the 3 halls properly populated. I thank you for your cooperation. I'm going to Mr. Uyi Akpata right now to start off here. Now, the time we have for all of us is 35 minutes. 35. I'll be guiding the time here. My colleagues will guide in the other rooms as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Excellency, the Governor of Kano State, all other protocols duly observed. Our session has been reduced by 5 minutes. I had a presentation, but I'm not going to put that up because it has been most of the contents have been ably covered by an earlier presentation this morning by Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. You will see that we have a very high-level panel. And so what I expect us to do in the next 30 minutes will be for these individuals to spend a total of 4 minutes creating impact. So they're going to have very impactful statements, no elaborate presentations. I assure you no one can do it as good as Dr. Oduwole did it. So I'm expecting us to come out and give very, very impactful discussion. Earlier, I saw His Excellencies, the governors and deputy governors, actively taking down notes. The governor of Lagos State is used to taking up very, very useful points. So the performance of this panel will be determined by the extent to see we've taken out telling notes. On that note, let me introduce first to come the lead discussant. He's come all the way from New York. We were exchanging mails yesterday. He was traveling about 2 days ago. So I guess we should give him the main spotlight. He's the only one that will come here to do a presentation for 3 to 5 minutes. Tell us about your outlook from an external perspective. How do you see ease of doing business, especially as we've seen that we've improved significantly? Okay, well, you can have up to 7 minutes as lead discussant, but let's set the ball rolling. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Professor Alan Frischman, Professor of Economics, Hobart and W.F. Smith College, Rochester, New York.
7 minutes, huh? Thank you for inviting me here. Let me just give you a quick 1-minute background. I came to Nigeria originally in 1966, over 50 years ago. And I've been doing research on the economy of Nigeria, especially Kano, ever since, and tracking large-scale industries. It so happens that the governor of Kano, who stepped out, was a student of mine when I was teaching here originally, way back 50 years ago. So we go way back together. Let me just say quickly a few things. I was going to talk about the ease of doing business, but that was all covered this morning, so there's no reason to talk about that anymore. But I have some perspectives on that. If you go 300 kilometers around Lagos and 300 kilometers around Kano, each of those would include enough population to make each of them one of the biggest countries in all of Africa. So there's a huge population, huge demand for products and for services. And so in both cases, those are the two major areas in Nigeria, of course. In Lagos, of course, in the world globalization world today, Lagos has a port. But Kano is what we'd call a landlocked area. And so there are two major connections between Lagos and Kano that need to be established. One is to reestablish the railroad, which is being worked on. I was in Kano back in the 1970s and 80s when the railroad was running. Huge amounts of inputs and outputs were being moved by the railroad, which is very efficient. But of course, since 1988, the railroad has not been functioning. And that would help Kano tremendously, would also help Lagos because there'd be tremendous interaction between the two cities. The other thing that really needs to be done, which is beyond the states, of course, is to extend the fiber optic cable, which Lagos is connected to, but all the way up to Kano. That would enable the city of Kano and Lagos to be interactive on the world internet, which is so important for services in the world today and is the growing part of the economy all over the world. And so those two things, the railroad and the fiber optic cable, are two areas that connect the two cities and would benefit both of them tremendously. In terms of ease of doing business, as was noted earlier this morning, Nigeria doesn't rank very high, but there's been a lot of improvements and they've been moving up in the ratings, which has been pointed out. But the informal sector obviously ignores all of those problems, all of those constraints in ease of doing business, and is booming in both Lagos and in Kano. And so the ease of doing business is a necessary but not sufficient condition for the economy of both cities. In other words, it's important to have them, all those mechanisms to set up a business and construct a business, but it's not enough. There are more things that have to be done to enable those industries and economic development to occur. And let me go back also to the 1970s and 1980s when I was in Kano. There were 350 large-scale businesses. They were all operating very efficiently. Again, the railroad was running then. And the ease of doing business was not very good then either, but they all overcame that and they were operating, and the same thing was happening in Lagos. And then, of course, many of them collapsed. But so the ease of doing business is important. It's terribly important, but it's not enough. There are other factors that need to be taken into consideration for the economy to grow and prosper in both places. And so let me just make some suggestions about Kano, which I know better than Lagos. Kano is disconnected from the port, but it does have a wonderful airport. And so, for instance, instead of trying to develop industries just for local production, one thing that you have to think outside the box, and one thing that could be developed is in Kenya and in Ethiopia, there's a huge industry of growing flowers, which are airlifted to Europe. It creates millions, tens of millions of dollars of income. And so Kano could do that and grow flowers and export them by air to Europe. They're fragile and don't last very long, and they have to be moved by air. So if Kano could come up with some projects like that, which would allow it to prosper and use the airport, which is one of its facilities that it has, it would help the economy tremendously. And there are many other examples of things that could be exported by air as well. And so clearly there are connections between Lagos and Kano, and if the economies of both cities are going to prosper, they need to have ease of starting industries, but also they need to have better, as been pointed out by many people over the last day and a half, better electricity, better infrastructure, and a connection between the two cities would be very helpful for both cities. So rather than take too much time, there are many other things I could say, but I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next, I would like to call on the Honorable Commissioner for Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Cooperation and Tourism for Kano, Alhaji Hagba Rabiu. I know you have a lot to say, but I want you to specifically focus on telling all of us here what you did right in the course of the last 18 months in terms of your collaboration with the federal government, especially the significant number of points you moved in terms of enforcing contracts. But use that as a platform, then tell us about other things. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Your Excellency, the moderator, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We have, luckily, part of the job has been done by the Secretary to the PEPEC when she mentioned that we have moved up to 43 points up in improving ease of doing business in Kano. Having said that, the major institutions required to attract investments in Kano for registering land use, all other facilitations, access to funds, movement, which has been the major issues, moving within the city and to outside, have all been properly established. I just wish to mention, just a point, that even the Security Trust Fund, which is a key element to people's comfort when they come any place to do business. We had been here in Lagos about 6 years ago and I studied the Lagos State Security Trust Fund. I chaired the technical committee and we have established our own in Kano. And the process is ongoing now to strengthen it, to make sure that it's able to compete appropriately. We have got the light rail project for movement around Kano, light rail. And we have got, as has been mentioned by Professor, the airport in Kano, which is the first airport in Africa. We have got contiguous to it 264 hectares of land that is available as a free zone. That is called Panisau. Kano free zone is available in that airport. Just the same perimeter, within the same, sharing the same space. And we have also another inland dry port, a logistics free zone in Kano, which is sitting on a 200 hectares land. And it's also being facilitated to make, to attract investors that will come for light industries. Having said this, generally as we have the 507 reform institutions that we've been working with PEVEC to ensure that we are able to bring all the business community and other stakeholders in Kano up to speed to be able not only to key in to the reform agenda, but to be able to surpass other states. We are happy to some extent, Your Excellency, we are ahead of Lagos in ease of doing business.
that Lagos State will see from businesses and the higher level of compliance will make sure that you will not regret that decision. So I'd like to thank you. I'd like to also thank my colleagues, Mrs. Dr. Thomas. They have to, I know they have a target, but when we work together on things like this and the collaboration, when we scale up, it really makes a huge difference. There are a number of things from page 19 of the booklet, which you'll see that Lagos State can do in both areas. When I want to talk about registering property, page 21 really talks about amalgamation of fees into one payment. Whether or not we're even reducing rates, businesses find it very irritating when they have to make a multiplicity of payments, especially small payments here and there, and you don't really know when this is due, and then it becomes a bit challenging. So when we reduce registration of procedures by 3, that's going to be the impact of that. And the number of days will also reduce to 3. We also have to ensure availability of land information on the Bureau and the Surveyor General's website. We had a meeting with them last week. We meet every 2 weeks, and always very well attended, always very well coordinated. I must really commend Lagos State team, since the question was directed at Lagos State, because we also do go to Kano State, and I can speak to that as well. So apart from that publication of information on the Surveyor General's website, maintaining the publication of statistical information on land disputes is another big one that will surely deliver a number of points for Lagos State on registering property. Of course, the time and the regularization of the procedures for governor's consent is always a winner any day. But one thing that I should say is that Lagos State has done quite a bit that would like to encourage further communication. We've talked just on Friday about having stakeholder engagement, targeted stakeholder engagements at the particular constituency so that they actually know what has been done. We had a lot of work done last year that private sector did not reflect for us in their questionnaires. And because of that, that's probably, we left some things on the table. So if it's another thing that I would dwell on, it would be on the targeted communication of specific stakeholders so they know what has been done, they know what has been done to simplify procedures for them and to make things more simple for them, because I know that they would really appreciate it. I think I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I like that bit. I think what we have in common between Lagos and Kano has been the fact that the governments have decided to have one central coordinating point. One central coordinating point to drive all the reforms as it relates to ease of doing business. For instance, the Special Transformation Office in Lagos drives that, and the ministry under its Honorable Commissioner drives that in Kano. I also like the fact that we've recognized that stakeholder engagement is necessary. Because with all the internal reforms, if you cannot take it out to the private sector or stakeholders, then we will not feel the real impact. So let me use that as an opportunity to now move over to private sector areas. And I'll start with Mrs. Bola Adeshola, who is the MD CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, Nigeria. You have many private sector customers, and in your view, and interacting with them, what do you think are the major areas you want to see the actual reforms that impact their doing business?
Thank you, Your Excellency. Before I respond to Mr. Akpata, I will say I commend you for this summit because it's like a twinning summit. And I also want to remind us of something which Eleanor Roosevelt, the former First Lady of the US, said, where she said, great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. And I think when you have great states coming together, collaborating and cooperating, I think it can only continue to drive momentum. From the private sector perspective, indeed, it is easier to do business today than it was 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And it's both the tangible and the intangible. The tangible are the things, for example, that Dr. Duole measures in Quebec. But the intangibles are also the business sentiments. And I think the business sentiments was boosted by Nigeria's improvement on the ease of doing business. It's like investing in the stock market. There's fundamentals and there's sentiment. So I won't repeat some of the things which we have benefited from: ease of better turnaround time for registration, processing of our trade transactions, the collateral registry. And indeed, I think SMEs have really benefited from a lot of the improvements that we have seen in the reforms. But as a business, and I think I speak for many businesses, the most extensive interaction with states is in the area of tax administration. And so whilst there have been improvements, there are still challenges in that area. In fact, our bank closed our branches in 2 other states because of the disincentive to investment, to remaining there. When you get harassed by state tax officials, locking up the branch, arresting our people, and so on. And we actually closed those branches. But you know what we did? We opened more branches in Lagos because we found that in Lagos, even though we still have a few challenges, it's still an investor-friendly destination for us. The second thing is, and what I will also ask, because it's not just about PEBEC at the federal level, it's also about what I would say is SEBEC, which is the state ease of doing business executive councils as well. I think, you know, the state governments and the federal governments must harmonize and align so that a lot of what is done at the federal level trickles down to the state, and what is done at the state also complements and supports what's happening at the federal government. But what I will ask, sir, is in order to ensure that a state like Lagos and Kano are easier for us to do business in, the things that we would ask for are good transportation infrastructure to the extent to which the state can provide, also on a PPP basis, because there's a lot that rests on the private sector as well to do. The second thing is good governance, and we thank you for the excellent governance in the last 3.5 years. The third thing, sir, is good manners, also by state officials, because at the end of the day, no matter what we do, no matter the statistics, if our engagement as private sector with state government officials comes out as a negative experience, it's not good for investment. Adequate security, and I think we've spoken about that. Continued respect for the rule of law by state governments, it's very, very important. Name and shame in terms of corrupt activities, and consistency and sustainability in the execution of reforms and policies. But I think a lot rests on the private sector as well. There's much for us to do. The first one that I would say to help ensure that the efforts of the states and the efforts of federal government are sustainable is advocacy on our own part. We need to give you feedback. And thank you for I think you have a parlay, sir, next week or so. This first one I've been invited to, so maybe I'm now on your guest list. But I think those parlays are good because they will give you feedback on our experience as businesses. The second one for us in the private sector, and if the private sector operatives here, is compliance with government regulations. If we don't comply with government regulations, we've got no moral basis to ask government to respect the rule of law. So compliance on our part, on the part of the private sector, not to bribe government officials. They don't bribe themselves, we bribe them. So we need to stop that as well from the private sector perspective and obey the law. The third one is that we need to do more in terms of PPP on infrastructure projects. The state governments cannot do it alone. We have to support you, and we continue to support you. And the fourth one, thank you very much, the fourth one, as I round up, is on our CSR activities. I think we need to do more in partnership with the state government, whether it's beautification, supporting hospitals, primary and secondary schools. I think a lot is being done by the private sector, because sometimes the public sector thinks the private sector is a vending machine. We're not vending machines, we work for our shareholders. But I think that in partnership, we can improve the environment in which we do business. And finally, Dr. Duwale just mentioned that we actually have ease of doing business councils in the states. I think communication, letting the public know what the state government is doing. If you ask me, even as a business person in Lagos State, I'm sure I would not be able to tell you more than one or two things that I think Lagos is doing to improve the business environment. So I think the communication strategy is very, very key. It'll improve sentiment, it will attract investment, and at the end of the day, it will also ensure that the business environment is healthy for us to do business in. So those are my comments. Definitely, we're moving forward. It's a journey, and we can't just celebrate the success of last year alone. We have to keep moving. Thank you.
Okay, I believe you've just handed the mic. I believe you've just handed the mic over to Dr. Mudashiru Yusuf.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First, let me also support the sentiments that have been expressed about the progress that has been made in Lagos. You can see that generally the level of prosperity of the private sector in Lagos is much higher than many other places in the country. And it takes a good environment for that to happen. That we'll appreciate. Now, very quickly, on the issue of ease of doing business and the ranking, I think it is important to interrogate the methodology for some of these rankings. Because it is better for these assessments to be more country-specific. Because there are some variables that are captured in the report that are not that significant. And there are some variables that are very significant that are not captured in the ease of doing business report. So, for instance, the issue of security is a major issue that we contend with here. Issue of logistics is a major issue. Issue of regulatory governance is a major issue. Issue of business ethics is a major issue. All these are very profound variables that impact ease of doing business in the country, which are not properly captured in the World Bank ease of doing business report. Perhaps we may have to convey this through Dr. Duwale to those who prepare this report to give more local context to the ease of doing business thing. Now, specifically on Lagos State, just as I said, a lot of progress has been made, but there's always room for improvement. There has been some talk about the issue of land titles. You see how quite some issues there, getting perfection of land titles, dealing with the bureaucrats in these areas. Then the issue of multiplicity or multiple levels, taxes, fees, and all of that. That is still an issue that a lot of businesses complain about. We have the tax, then we have many of the parastatals of government that also go around to impose some fees. Some of them appoint consultants that give businesses very, very high bills for them to do what they are doing. I think these are things that we need to look. Then the focus of taxation is too heavy on the formal sector of the economy. this economy is big, and the informal sector of the economy, even in Lagos, is probably bigger than the formal sector. But when it comes to the issue of taxation, the burden of taxation is borne mainly by those who are in the formal sector, because they can easily be identified, they have offices, they are registered, and so on. So I think we need to look at whatever model we can adopt to be able to bring as many people as possible into the tax net, so that the burden of taxation is not just heavily borne by the formal sector of the economy. Then the legislative processes. From time to time, there are legislations. I want to appeal, at least from the legislative point of view, that we are better informed or better communicated as to public hearings. Sufficient notices should be given. Not that we have a public hearing tomorrow, you are getting the notice today, you don't have the time to prepare. No, this is not also good enough for an inclusive democratic process. Then there is the point of advocacy. We say that we're a federation, but we are not actually operating as a federation. So we need to strengthen our advocacy to ensure that we have a true federation. If you have a true federation, a state like Lagos will make much bigger progress, much faster progress that we are making. We have some locations around the state, for instance, they say some roads are federal roads. They are so deteriorated, they are so bad, but because they are federal roads, not much is happening, although occasionally the state government magnanimously intervene. But if you go by what the rules are, they are not necessarily there. So please, it is important that we strengthen our advocacy to ensure we have true federalism in this country. The same thing applies to VAT. I mean, a lot of value-added tax is collected in Lagos State. How much of it comes back to Lagos? That is also a very important thing. It's also a federalist, constitutional issue. So as we discuss all of this, we should also tackle this issue of restructuring, particularly to ensure that we have true federation or true federalism in the country. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think for this round of presentations, let me, last but not the least, Professor Abdulsalam Nasri, Vice Chairman of Rich Care Foundation. I know you had a presentation, but please, 3 minutes, the highlights.
Can I go there?
You can come here, you can do that, but 3 minutes, please. You're on the clock. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. No, they can't show, just talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I have to follow the advice of the Executive Governor of Lagos State that says it's time for us to start talking not only out of the box, but far away from the box. Since yesterday, I've been hearing and listening to everybody, and I'm very shocked that the most important aspect of our work is, virtually missing, and I thought my neighbor, who is the last speaker before me, will have mentioned that the aspect of health is completely out. And that means you are forgetting yourselves, that you are using ways of doing business, but you are not using ways of keeping you healthy and safe to do the business. And I'm giving, I won't talk much. Just to remind you, I'm going straight to what has happened, that a much 50% of economic growth differentials between developed and developing nations are attributed to ill health and low life expectancy. While life expectancy in most developed countries ranges between 80 to 85 years, in our countries is still swinging around 45 to 55%. So whatever you do and however successful you are in easing doing business, without showing that you have improved the well-being of your people, you have not done much. Next slide, I will go straight to what, just to give you an example as to what can happen if you ignore health in planning. We are all aware that the city of Lagos and Port Harcourt experienced terrible outbreak of Ebola. That outbreak, started in 3 West African countries. Go back to the last slide. And in these countries, which were Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, if you remember all, they had protracted wars for almost 10, 15 years. They are the poorest nations in Africa. Yet those wars did not bring them down, did not crumble their economy. But one invisible enemy came and did the job. I will just actually show you that, next slide. If we ignore health and these terrible events come, you will be very surprised. The outbreaks in these three countries demonstrate the dangers of using GDP to actually, showcase your success in development. Next slide. Next slide. Our response to the outbreak in Lagos was very swift and far-reaching, and we had to use existing tools, health tools, to fight Lassa, polio, to fight this disease. And it's very interesting to note that within a short period of time, we instituted an aggressive control measures that showcase that Lagos was immediately free of this virus, and by that doing, we restored the confidence in doing business in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, and in Nigeria. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. The impact of outbreaks, as listed on this slide, I don't need to mention them, but it's very important that we take note that when you have such outbreaks, all your plans, to actually ease doing business will be disrupted because borders could be closed, flights could be suspended. British Airways, Emirates suspended their flights to Sierra Leone and Guinea. Conferences, meetings, and even some projects could be cancelled. As we observed, Dangote Group did in Sierra Leone. Canadian Overseas Petroleum, suspended drilling in Liberia, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Getting to zero. To show that we did well, the WHO described our response as world-class epidemiological detective work and declared Nigeria Ebola-free on the 20th of October 2014. And so we reinstated the confidence to do business in Lagos. I have to stop here. I have many more slides, just to respect, my chairman and His Excellency, but to mention that please don't forget yourselves. Health is wealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the organizers will share the slides. But have you noticed I've got an excellent, dynamic, and experienced panel here. But you will notice I deliberately started with a professor and ended with a professor, and they were the only two that decided to go out there to lecture us. But on a very serious note, I like the last presentation, particularly all the things related to ease of business would not be significant if it does not result in the well-being of our people. That is the real impact, as it were. So I like that. I think that's what we should take out of this. In all we do, how does it get to the man on the street? How does it get to the business persons and the rest of... I would like to give one or two questions, but I think we have 10 minutes. Rather than go around again, I think they've done a good job the first time. Rather, I would like to take questions. And I will also... maybe questions for someone. And is there someone who, Transformation Office or Urban in Lagos, who can respond to one or two of the issues as it relates to property? Who is that? Is that Professor Abbas? Okay, Professor Abbas, Special Advisor, Lagos Global. Okay, His Excellency, we also want to give...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the panelists. Fantastic. There is no doubt about that. Just an intervention. As Mr. Akwacha said, I'm the special advisor to the governor on overseas affairs and investment. So my job is to drive investment. I think from all this, one thing that I think is missing is a very simple question. The ease of doing business ranking, and I like what Professor Frischman said, is not enough. we need to do more. The question is, how do we ensure that no matter how well we are ranked, instigate a translation in how many proposals we're able to convert into concrete investment? Because for me, that's the bottom line. So it doesn't matter whether World Bank ranks us number 1 or number 10. The ultimate question for me as a state is, how many investors have I been able to bring and convert in my state? Now, and that question goes to Dr. Oduwole. In your presentation, you said Lagos State and Kano State only mattered in 2 of those ranking, the indices. As a state, I face a challenge whenever an investor comes and I say, yeah, we've improved 24. The question is, what of your energy situation? Federal government. Company registration? Federal government. Immigration? Federal government. Incentives for investors? Federal government. Capital repatriation? Federal government. Prohibition list? Federal government. Now, as a state, I am trying to bring in an investor, but about 7 or 8 critical issues that an investor wants to see on ground are controlled by the federal government. So no matter how much I try as a state, at a local level, I am trying to clap with just one hand. What is the federal government doing to make sure that all these things that I call federal challenges are addressed, to ensure a translation of the ease of doing business into concrete terms at the state level? Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Okay, His Excellency also wants to comment or ask a question.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. We want to say a big thank you to the panelists. I like the, is it called hybrid now? I like the mixture. And I enjoyed the health perspective. You know, I never thought of that. And I've gotten so much from everything that has been said. I like the idea. And I like whoever did the mixture, fantastic job. Now, the issues are many. I like to make comments. I like to ask questions. But, you know, putting everything together. I like the part from LCCI that talked about the cultural perspective to the World Bank ranking on the ease of doing business. I like that part he tried to bring up. That can we question the variables that are put in there? But again, because we say we want to be globally competitive, so there are benchmarks from the global perspective that we need to follow. But because we also want to do it in our own way, putting into consideration some of our cultural values, we need to address some areas that might not necessarily be in the ranking variables, of which I want this panel to respond. Prof, it was the one that actually steered me, and that's where I'm going. So when he started, he said, ease of doing business is good, but not enough. Now, in our own setting, in Kano, in Lagos, informal sector represents almost like 80% of the economy. Maybe Kano, 90%. Maybe Lagos, 80%. So, that aspect of our economy, how do we make business so easy for the larger proportion of our people to create greater social impact? So, when CEO Standard Chartered Bank was talking, we've done more for SMEs in the last 2.5 years than ever before. So we're able to integrate them and pull them, maybe by Employment Trust Fund, entrepreneurs, borrowing their money, empowerment program. Now, how do we address the issue of financial inclusion of the larger part of our own society? They don't have issues like that in UK. They don't have it in US. But do you know what social impact we'll be having? If we make it a variable, we can add our own variable inside and say, if we improve on financial inclusion, if we do mobile banking to that trader in that Kano Central Market that uses his phone to transfer money. Look, if I want to buy meat, I should be able to give the meat seller through my phone and pay. I don't need to carry the cash because the larger portion of my people are sole traders and they're just individuals. If I integrate them into the pool of that my economy, I've improved on the ease of doing business because the financial inclusion now gives you more customers in the bank. Now it makes transfer possible for those buying Unilever products or buying MTN products. And that in itself gives us that cultural mileage to improve on ease of doing business. So it's not really about industrialists, it's not about manufacturers, but it's a larger portion of our own people who are in that ordinary market or that shoemaker. I should be able to shine my shoe and use my phone to pay. I don't need to carry cash. So that aspect, you need to answer it and tell me, how do I improve on financial inclusion, which also ultimately now improves on good governance? If more people are involved, it allows me to improve on my GDP ultimately. Then you also talk about tangible and intangibles. Advocacy, communication. Advocacy more, not from government, but on all stakeholders. What is it there that we can speak about from the private sector, from government, from NGOs, that actually help us to improve on our ranking? Because you see, no matter how much communication I do, look, it's not your business as CEO in the bank to hear that I'm doing town hall meeting somewhere. It doesn't add up to your profit. So no matter how much I talk, you don't listen. Abi? What I'm saying is, it's not your scale of preference. So somehow we miss communications. And that aspect, we all need to accept that improving on our ranking is a joint work. And I like the idea that you also talked about improving on CSR. And then CSR can be structured. We don't structure CSR in this country. So I want to be bigger than MTN. So as Glo, I do my own thing. Whereas we can come together as state government and private company and structure a CSR program. In South Africa, there's a CSR law. There's a percentage you give. And the government now tells you where to structure your CSR to. So those things are important that we can work together and then also push together to improve on our ranking. I mean, just a few comments that I just pick and maybe you can respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Since Excellency has spoken, the anchor says I have a 5 minutes credit. So we have additional 5 minutes. So I think, Dr. Duole, apparently you will just probably very briefly respond to those questions. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions and the comments. I'll start with the first question from Professor Abbas, Lagos Global. So the Lagos Kano being representative of Nigeria's doing business rankings. First of all, the project of the ease of doing business initiative of the administrations, and I say administrations because it actually cuts across from national and subnational, goes beyond World Bank rankings. I limited myself to the topic of the day, but if you recall the mandate is to remove bottlenecks. So as PEBEC, we have 2 homegrown initiatives, entry and exit of people, and I'm glad to say at least, Ms. Adeshola, a lot of private sector feedback comes my way, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, different people, and we have trading within Nigeria, which talks about trading across the states, movement of goods, taxes, different things. But when it comes to collaborating, because we're one economy, that's why I put the slide up, that there are 2 things that are entirely within the state purview, which is dealing with construction permits and registering property. And I'm really, really delighted to say that the states have taken full ownership. And I'm on name terms with everybody that works in that area in both Lagos and Kano. I'm looking at several of them right here in this room. The state has taken full ownership. The areas that it's both state and federal are starting a business and enforcing contracts. Both judiciaries of Lagos and Kano State are working with us. They have a representation on the PEBEC. and the chief judges are working with the PEBEC to institute Magistrate Small Claim Court. In fact, His Excellency, the Governor of Kano, just committed last week to support the judiciary of Kano so they can have a training of their small claims court. Now, the other areas that are solely within the purview, and we all know that we're a federation, that are solely within the purview of the federal government, we don't stay in Abuja to fix those issues. Lagos and Kano will bear us witness. We've been in Lagos and Kano regularly with FIRS, with CAC, with a number of the agencies involved, with customs, with immigration. We go around together. We have stakeholder engagements in Lagos and Kano, and we work on these issues jointly. I've got feedback, whether from other MDAs send in issues that they have, even to do with other agencies that may not even be on their indicator. And the most important thing that I've found is that we work as a team. I've got a lot of support from the OTCI. They represent Lagos State at the council. And the NIPC, which is the equivalent of Lagos Global, they also partner with us, and they know that this does translate into impact, bottom line impact. When they want investors coming into the country, sometimes they want us to meet with these investors to discuss with them exactly what ease of doing business as a facilitation will do to help them bring in and keep those investments here. So I thought I'd talk about that. The second thing I'll talk about very quickly is that I mentioned that in July, we made presentations to the excellencies at the National Economic Council, and they really liked the idea of replicating what the PEBEC had done at the state level. Lagos and Kano have actually been helping to share knowledge with other state governments, and other state governments are on fire for this too. Kaduna State is on fire for this. They have an ease of doing business charter. They have things like tax harmonization bills already, cashless, different things that they're trying. And I've been on functions in Lagos where people from Kaduna have come to speak and come to learn also. Ogun State has hosted us, ease of doing business at a state level.
Okay,
so
thank you very much. So sorry I had to cut you there. I know Dr. Duwale is passionate about this. She can have the floor for the next 3 hours. She's been breathing this, and I think what I take from all this, and it's on that note I should round up here. I have the benefits of working closely with Dr. Jumoke's team and the Lagos State government on this transformation. So I see things. I know a lot has been done, but from what we hear, there needs to be better communication. Communication of what we are doing so that it's easy for people to respond. Unfortunately, I have 2 minutes, so I won't be able to get anyone to have to provide finishing notes. But let me seize this opportunity to say our engagement with external stakeholders as part of the assessment process on behalf of Lagos State on what the key issues are or where throughout certain things like poor collaboration amongst interdependent agencies, poor staff orientation to service delivery, I know it was mentioned earlier, manual and inefficient processes, limited stakeholder awareness and engagement, and I think that came out here, and lack of defined service levels among agencies and with citizens. So there are many ways Lagos has responded to this, the Citizens Gate, what we are doing in Transformation Office, but I think the general thing, what we are hearing here, sometimes try and blow your own trumpet, tell the people out there, and I'm sure, as Bola has said, the private sector, it's a joint race it's a joint agenda with the private sector. She indirectly also offered here that private sector is ready to support significant infrastructure and corporate social responsibility. So it's a joint initiative between the government and the private sector. So with better alignment, communication amongst all parties, I'm sure Lagos and Kano states will be at the forefront in taking Nigeria within the top 100 mark. So thank you very much. Please join me in thanking this very well-educated and experienced panel.
Let's put our hands together for Mr. Uyi Opata and the members of the panel. This is the largest panel we had in the course of this two-day event. A round of applause for them. Thank you very much. As they return to their seats, they're finishing in Agric right away as well. Please, you may come down to your seats, please. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to show you a video now that talks to the topic that has just been discussed here.
Kano State Security Training Institute was established to enhance the security of lives and property in the state. The installation of CCTV cameras and city gates at focal points leading into the metropolis has forestalled the activities of criminals. The Ganduje-led administration established a security outfit to be co-owned by graduates of the State's Corporate Security Institute. This synergy in the state has been fruitful, especially in curbing the castle rustling that has beset the state for many years. A lot of successes have been recorded, such as the recovery and returning of over 2,000 cows from cattle rustlers to their respective owners and recovery of dangerous weapons from cattle rustlers. The Center of Excellence has always ensured adequate security for its residents. One of the ways is the establishment of the Lagos State Security Trust Fund, which is a direct response to the security challenges in the state. Lagos currently has a helicopter surveillance system coupled with Special Operations Service (SOS) in partnership with the Rapid Response Squad (RRS). The Ambody-led administration recently commissioned a comprehensive security strategy, the Safe City Project, to enable a central security system while also employing the Nigerian Legion as security personnel in state MDAs, primary and secondary schools. The Kano State government introduced free land and tax incentives to propose investors in the state in order to develop agriculture and promote investment in various sectors. Tax and levy reliefs were extended to some companies such as Black Rhino Dangote Group, which will construct a 100-megawatt solar plant. The business climate in Kano is favorable for SMEs. This is reflected in the strength of the state's micro, small, and medium enterprise sector, with an estimated 1.6 million businesses across all economic activities, which contribute approximately 60 to 70% of output and employment. The revolution of resources such as textile and apparels, plastic and rubber, paper and paper products, leather, food and beverages, and basic industrial products in Kano State will encourage domestic and foreign investors. Lagos State government implemented Lagos Global, which promotes and oversees all domestic and foreign investments in Lagos. The process of starting a business in Lagos has evolved into simple and effortless steps, which has fast-tracked the development of businesses in the state. The state government has partnered with several agencies such as Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission to further improve industry. There has been a continuous expansion in foreign direct investment coupled with the implementation of reforms such as tax reforms, ease of permit application processes, improved land registration system, and quicker proposal processing. Lagos State Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, through the Agricultural Value Chain Empowerment Program, has empowered beneficiaries through the deployment of equipment and input like brand new outboard engines, generating sets, gari processing machines, grinders, as well as fish feed, pig meals, and body gears. The Lake Rice Project, a product which fostered a partnership between Lagos and Kebbi, has served the daily needs of Lagosians due to the availability of this staple food. The Agricultural Summer School has helped broaden the minds of students and stimulates their interest through intensive agricultural programs. Lagos State Government plans to further establish its chain of agricultural partnerships while also strengthening the Farm Settlement Initiative and empowerment of farmers, coupled with the expansion of private-public partnerships in this sector. Kano State has introduced a platform known as Tomato Value Chain Development in the state as part of its plan to fully maximize the economic value of the commodity. The West Africa Agricultural Productivity Project, WAAPP Nigeria, and the Kano Agricultural and Rural Development Authority
There we go. Let's put our hands together for this. This is history being made. These two gentlemen are walking their talk. They're not just talking, they are walking it. And we just wish that we will be able to take this to the next sensible level. All of us must cooperate to make it happen. There you go. That's yours, that's mine. A good round of applause for both governors, please. That's it. Congratulations to Kano and Lagos States. And as they make their ways back to their respective seats, I will request the Deputy Governor of Lagos State to get ready to come over here. Yes, ma'am. A round of applause, please, for Her Excellency Dr. Idiat Olunroti Adebule, Deputy Governor of Lagos State, as she gives the closing remarks for this epoch-making event. I want to request the members of the Kano State Cultural Troupe to get ready to thrill us as a formal end to the ceremony. Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, the Consolidator, Mr. of Lagos, thank you. Just not being the governor, but always trying at every point in time to create an opportunities for us to acknowledge the fact that we have a very visionary leader as governor. Your Excellency, the Governor of Kano State, always like a father. Each time I had the opportunity of meeting him at NEC, and His Excellency is not available, he will ask me, how is my brother? That is another way of demonstrating that's equally a very visionary leader. How time flies like an arrow, and now we are the closing. It is indeed my pleasure to be here to say a few words in closing at this summit. The summit, no doubt, have been one that have been described as historic. And of course, a lot is being achieved. And as you can see, just a few minutes ago, the MOU was signed. That is demonstrating the fact that we are committed to all that has been happening in the last 2 days. His Excellency, the Governor of Kano and that of Lagos, is equally telling the entire world that collaboration, cooperation, partnership can always work to bring sufficiency, economic sufficiency in our states and, of course, the entire nation. We have been here, we have looked at a lot of things. Broadly, we have discussed partnership as a tool for sustainable development, taking into account following thematic areas: governance, infrastructure, transportation, ease of doing business, securing the mega cities, and of course, urban waste management, and most importantly, education. We had presentations from leading minds, experts, erudite scholars from both the public and, of course, the organized private sectors. Numerous positions and point of views have been expressed and outlined, and in the process, our minds have been assailed by torrents of ideas, information, statistics, interpretation, and above all, vision. Vision and collaboration leading to economic sufficiency. I'm convinced that the most valuable outcome of this engagement is the fact that we have governors who have vision and had the opportunity of sharing this vision. Today, they are not just sharing the vision, they are providing an enabling environment for this vision to be actualized. Gone, of course, from what have been demonstrated here, it is not about us at the end of this summit coming up with topics, with communique. And of course, usually, it will be that we are looking for the political will. Today, we have the political will. Today, the political will have been demonstrated. And of course, it signifies the fact that we are ready for business. Lagos and Kano means business, and we are ready for business. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the takeaway from here is that both states, we are committed to providing the enabling environment. And this enabling environment will be that we are enacting laws that will support all that we have been saying here. And not just enacting laws, we are also enthroning policies that, again, will support our will, our vision, and together that will take us to our destination. I thank you all, Your Excellencies, my colleague, the Deputy Governor of Kano. Thank you also for being very, very brotherly. And of course, the Senator, the industrialists that are here. I can see Ms. Alhaji Rabiu, Mr. Rotinwa Adebajo, and a host of others. I thank all of you. To all our discussants, it's been wonderful. It's an experience that we wish that it continues, but then everything that has a good beginning must always come to an end. We thank you so much for the opportunities that you have provided in sharing the minds of all of us, and of course, urging us that whatever it is that we are doing now, it is not enough. In closing, I say we are ready for business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Lagos State. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if this had happened about 300 or 500 years ago, something that is available now was not available then. We have Wi-Fi. So those who want to send messages back home or to their respective offices could do so. We've had free Wi-Fi provided by 9 Mobile for this event. Also to let you know that there are exhibition booths that you can still check out on your way out, before you leave rather. Now, Kano State. Yesterday I said to you that these two states, Lagos and Kano, are very rich in culture. Kano is about to thrill us to the cultural aspect of being and living in Kano. Please put your hands together for the members of the Kano State Cultural Troupe. A good round of applause for them. Remember last night at Governor Ambode's residence, there was this lovely performance by the state's cultural troupe, Lagos State Cultural Troupe. Well, Kano is about to say, Lagos, we're not doing our own last night. This one, and we're going to have fun. And by the way, thank you last night, Governor Ambode. A round of applause for that lovely dinner. Thank you very much for hosting all of us. You can move forward if you want. Or you want to stay here? Oh, the drummers, okay. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Is anybody singing? Is anybody singing? No, okay, you just play. All right. So, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, a very big round of applause for this fantastic troupe. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. These are the kinds of things we go to Las Vegas to watch. Who says to you that we don't have good, great tourism potentials in Nigeria? All we need to do is develop it more and more. Make it as professional as possible. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let's put our hands together for them as they leave now. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have been conscripted to come. Number one, I'm not as slim as them. Omi pọ̀ lára. That's my punishment for trying to stop them. No problem. Like they say on TV, don't try this at home. Oh. Fantastic. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause. All right. And now they're rolling off the stage now. That's a rollout. Thank you. Thank you very much. What a wonderful way to end this great event. Let me just invite my colleagues Didi and Amin to say a formal thank you to you for being a wonderful and cooperative audience. Didi.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think it's safe to say that over the past 2 days, we've had a very insightful, interactive session. And I'd just like to thank all of you. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you to our panelists for your contribution, and to all of you for your attention and interaction. Over now to you.
Well, let me join Didi and Lekon in thanking everybody for the participation and the contribution. We want to say a big thank you to the government and people of Lagos State. Ladies and gentlemen, you are very warm. We thank you very much.
And so formally, we have come to the end of this 2-day Lagos Kano Economic and Investment Summit. The next one has already been suggested to us and naturally will take place in the great city-state of Kano. A round of applause. Thank you, Lagos State Government, for doing what you're used to doing. Every time Lagos says it is the center of excellence, yes it is. But this government says it is actually the progress of Lagos State as a complete entity that is their watchword. That is it. Itesiwaju Ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó ló jẹ wá lógún. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellencies. I dare not say you may rise, but I suggest you are free to go. Thank you. Shall we take the national anthem together? We sang it at the beginning, we'll sing it together. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland in love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Long live Kano State. Long live. Long live Lagos State. Long live. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Long live. Thank you very much.
The Kano State government introduced free land and tax incentives to propose investors in the state in order to develop agriculture and promote investments in various sectors. Tax and levy reliefs were extended to some companies such as Black Rhino Dangote Group, which will construct a 100 megawatt solar plant. The business climate in Kano is favorable for SMEs. This is reflected in the strength of the state's micro, small, and medium enterprise sector, with an estimated 1.6 million businesses across all economic activities, which contribute approximately 60 to 70% of output and employment. The revolution of resources such as textile and apparels, plastic and rubber, paper and paper products, leather, food and beverages, and basic industrial products in Kano State will encourage domestic and foreign investors. Lagos State government implemented Lagos Global, which promotes and oversees all domestic and foreign investment in Lagos. The process of starting a business in Lagos has evolved into simple and effortless steps, which has fast Kano State government introduced free land and tax incentives to propose investors in the state in order to develop agriculture and promote investments in various sectors. Tax and levy reliefs were extended to some companies such as Black Rhino Dangote Group, which will construct a 100-megawatt solar plant. The business climate in Kano is favorable for SMEs. This is reflected in the strength of the state's micro, small, and medium enterprise sector, with an estimated 1.6 million businesses across all economic activities, which contribute approximately 60 to 70% of output and employment. The revolution of resources such as textile and apparels, plastic and rubber, paper and paper products, leather, food and beverages, and basic industrial products in Kano State will encourage domestic and foreign investors. Lagos State government implemented Lagos Global, which promotes and oversees all domestic and foreign investments in Lagos. The process of starting a business in Lagos has evolved into simple and effortless steps, which has fast-tracked the development of businesses in the state. The state government has partnered with several agencies such as Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission to further improve industry. There has been a continuous expansion in foreign direct investment coupled with the implementation of reforms such as tax reforms, ease of permit application processes, improved land registration system, and quicker proposal processing.